Battlefield 6 is a massive success. There's really no point in denying that, but I would be lying if I said I wasn't skeptical about its future either way. As you'll see in this video, I want to ask some really hard questions, but also wonder how the acquisition of Electronic Arts by Saudi Arabia, of all people, might just be a curse disguising itself as a blessing, and much more from even how Call of Duty just might be able to swing favor back to its position too. I gotta fully admit something as well. When I originally played Battlefield 6, I was not feeling the game whatsoever. For some reason, my brain was having a really hard time adjusting to the game's shooting and its mechanics. It had been years since I played Battlefield, okay? The last proper game in the series I played was Battlefield 1. I skipped 5 in 2042, and 6 at first again was not grabbing me. Then about maybe a week ago, I decided to play some more Battlefield 6. I really gave the multiplayer an earnest shot. I tried to understand its systems more, and then I had that eureka moment. Everything honestly just clicked. It made sense, and I had that gut feeling of, here we go. Am I screwed now? Did DICE and EA just find a way to sink their teeth into my game time with this game again? And now, hours upon hours later, I am fully convinced now that Battlefield 6 is the best shooter of the year, and frankly, one of my favorite games of the year too now as well. Black Ops 7, however, I'm having the opposite time. That game has never really clicked for me. Nothing really feels evolved or interesting, and I found myself not really coming back to it after initially reviewing the game for the channel. I stopped playing Black Ops 7's multiplayer around level 30-something-ish, and I haven't really looked back if I'm being honest, and now it seems like Black Ops 7 is not only doing worse, it's getting annihilated, it's not even close, and Battlefield is instead rising like a literal phoenix. As EA reported here, Battlefield 6 has annihilated its sales trajectory, becoming a massive hit, and is currently the best-selling game of the entire year. First place earlier this year used to be Monster Hunter Wilds, but after that game's catastrophic launch where Capcom couldn't fix its issues, especially those on PC, sales, well, they dropped off a cliff for it. So Battlefield has also felt weird at launch, but in the best way possible, because it wasn't only a great game, but it somehow ran smoothly too. It felt really weird to play a Battlefield game at launch that wasn't a broken mess. I remember playing Battlefield 4 when the PS4 first launched, and I brought it home and I couldn't even play the game myself because it just kept on crashing. It corrupted my save files like 5 times, and the online looked like a PS2 graphics game at best due to how many glitches and problems there were when I played it. But Battlefield 6 has been the exact opposite. I have had 0 crashes and barely any issues whatsoever. The game somehow runs like a miracle, as if sorcerers in like the mountains were keeping Battlefield 6's code together through magic spells or something. As Windows Central posted recently too, Battlefield 6's anti-cheat has also been widely successful, countering almost all of the potential cheaters looking to hack right into DICE's newest game and ruin it. Since launch, DICE confirmed that there has been 2.39 million attempts of cheaters trying to break Battlefield 6. Of those cheaters, 96.3% of them have been successfully defeated and banned from playing the game. That's actually insane, but it's true. DICE somehow managed to not only release a functioning game at release for once, but they crushed almost every single cheater too. Obviously, some did get through, but hey, the fact this cheating system was able to stop what it has is nothing short of amazing. Personally, I haven't ran into any cheaters that I know of anyways. Every time I got shot in the face or blown into meat chunks, it was usually my fault. And every loss was obviously never my fault, but my teammates, because they're bad and I'm the best there ever was. That's a joke, by the way. I'm decent at this game, but nowhere near godlike. But anyways, I usually just hold on for dear life and shoot people and just hope I live. It's worked so far pretty good, but DICE then reported that in terms of match infection rate, which is a metric to determine how often a game session has a cheater in it, that, as they show here, that roughly 2% of all multiplayer matches played in Battlefield 6 since launch have had confirmed cheaters in them, so a whopping 98% of all the matches have been cheater-free. That's crazy, dude, but it's good for them. Activision with Black Ops is also seen here from PC Gamer stated that they've stopped about 97% of cheaters so far too. Yet the forums for Black Ops 7 are still rampant with people complaining that they're running into cheaters, well, pretty much all of the time anyways. This isn't good, since in Black Ops 6, as seen here from Tweaktown, Black Ops 6 had so many cheaters that Activision lost the majority of their players just within within a single month after release when that game came out, crippling its potential earnings as everything became swarmed with morons who wouldn't play the game fairly. The interesting thing about Battlefield is that its existence, like Call of Duty, has led to further competition through inadequacies too. Patrick Soderlund, that's a former Electronic Arts executive, this is this guy on screen here, eventually left EA after working on things like Battlefield as well, to instead opt out to make a smaller company that could make games more efficiently according to him. Patrick would then become the CEO of Embark Studios, who would make games like The Finals and more recently, maybe you heard about it, Arc Raiders. I can't show the clips of where I'm referencing this from because it's technically a copyright nightmare if I do, but Arc Raiders recently put out a documentary on how the game was made, and Patrick Soderlund spoke about how after working at EA on Battlefield, he believed that bigger was not always better. He believed that games were in general from a AAA sense becoming so large they would become unmanageable, which is why he left EA with other developers from DICE that he trusted and then made Embark Studios. One of those people was Robert Samelin, that's this guy here on screen, who is the art director at Embark Studios on Arc Raiders. And as seen here during the documentary, Robert confirms how many games he has worked on at DICE, and as you can see, it's a lot of Battlefield games, alright? And while sure, Battlefield 6 is a massive success, the biggest success actually never seen from this franchise, my question is from someone outside looking in, how will DICE and EA manage this behemoth now that they have all this forward momentum? And this is now the main meat of the video. I know, a lot of setup, I apologize, but we've seen it happen so many times already, okay? Sometimes something does really well. People want to be a part of it. Then there's obviously too many cooks in the kitchen now. The identity of what people loved gets muddy, then people leave, and then things fall apart. Why I bring up Arc Raiders and place that against Battlefield and Call of Duty is because I want to ask you guys a simple question. Do you think the industry will learn the right things from the success stories of Arc Raiders, and especially things like Battlefield? Or will they just learn all the wrong lessons and only see money like they do with Call of Duty? As happy as I am to have a genuinely great shooter experience with Battlefield, my cynical brain can't help but feel as if future games will be nowhere near as good because EA always tends to learn the wrong lessons. You only need to look at the literal graveyard of dead IPs that EA has either bought and dumped after sales didn't reach their expectations. Remember franchises like Mercenaries, Army of Two, Command & Conquer, Dirt, Fight Night, Wing Commander, hell, they even dumped Dead Space after the remake didn't meet expectations either. And the team that worked on that Dead Space remake is now a Battlefield studio anyway, so it's not like it's going to be happening anytime soon with a sequel. But this then brings me to the next big question and the crux of the video, which is sure, Battlefield 6 was a major success, but what about the future of not only the series but really Electronic Arts as a whole? Because reminder, EA was bought recently for $55 billion by the Saudi Arabian Public Investment Fund, which was a huge story because a lot of people got really angry about it happening in the first place. But now there's been another development that made me raise another eyebrow, which is that now that the Saudis own EA and Battlefield by proxy, it turns out they don't have enough money to properly invest into future projects because they blew it all on buying EA in the first place. As seen here from PC Gamer, the Saudis claim they're in financial distress right now after multiple things they've invested in aren't bearing the returns they expected. The projects not making money aren't game related, but they are still affecting their bottom line. Some of these include a coffee chain that didn't take off, a massive walled city apparently, and a cruise line that only has a single ship. Regardless, these mistakes all costed the Saudis tons of money in losses. According to sources that spoke to the New York Times, which is who I'm referencing here by the way, the Saudis have allegedly about $60 billion in cash, but as seen here, the validity of this is being questioned, and according to people familiar with the finances and the acquisitions of the Saudi Arabians, that the actual reality of what's available leaves virtually nothing to invest in the foreseeable future. So why and what does this have to do with EA and Battlefield, you may be asking? Well, when a company buys up another company for a ridiculous amount of money like they did, they're gonna want to see returns faster to make up for the massive loss of cash. The problem with EA is that while yes, the Saudis owning them will likely cause future games to ditch the more progressive activist elements of their games like body types and other nonsense, at least people assume that anyways, the other problem is that the Saudis likely are going to want EA to give them short-term games to now make up for the loss of that $55 billion they spent buying EA in the first place. Why this is worrying is because, like I started this video with, EA's finally found their footing with Battlefield. As I said, it runs great, it looks nice, and it plays phenomenally. It's as if after years of losses, EA was finally able to realize what they had on their hands and then turn the sinking ship around to glory. But now that they've been bought out, their new owners could be taking this massive win of Battlefield and then turning it into a crazy get-rich quick scheme to now make up for the loss of profits in the short term, like I said before. The concern from investors at EA, according to the New York Times, is that they are worried that the Saudis will look to cannibalize the company in the future to save themselves. This would then lead to EA being forced by their new owners to now seek out high returns that are not logical nor sustainable. For example, if you thought that Battlefields or really any game EA does in terms of monetization is bad now, which people have complained about already, it could in theory get much worse very fast because the Saudis will need that money faster. So I do fully expect Battlefield to push some crazy cosmetics and maybe some crossovers before long, despite EA claiming that they weren't going to do that before the game launched. But of course, they said all of this before an entire government investment fund came in like Tony Stark of all people and, bought him up immediately. So why this worries me is because EA just got into the good graces of players with Battlefield, and now this could just flip the table over and destroy all that delicious food they just made for everyone to eat, because the Saudis, well, they want their money over anything else right now. It could be the fastest rise to prominence and then fall into scum and villainy we've ever seen in a hot minute, pretty much is what I'm trying to say. The Saudis could also just liquidate the company's assets to close the widening gap, which could also lead to more layoffs and studio closures and more to plug up their inefficiencies too. PC Gamer also mentions how this wouldn't be the first time a private equity firm completely ruined the games industry through acquisitions, mergers, and false promises either. They bring up Embracer Group as an example, which if you don't remember, that was a mega acquisition that attempted to just own large parts of the Western games industry a few years back, and it pretty much collapsed everywhere. As seen here, it happened in 2023. Embracer absolutely just cooked the studios they purchased because they, just like the Saudis, didn't have nearly enough money to keep all the studios they bought afloat in the long run. It led to games like a Deus Ex sequel getting cancelled. And of course, if you want the raw numbers, Embracer canceled like around 80 potential games, they closed 44 studios, and they laid off roughly 4,500 employees once they went around buying up all of these studios in the first place. And by the way, the amount of money that Embracer spent buying up large swaths of the games industry was nowhere near what the Saudis paid for Electronic Arts alone. Embracer bought Gearbox, the makers of Borderlands, for $1.3 billion, Asmodee for $3.1 billion, Easy Brain for $640 million. They even spent $300 million to buy Crystal Dynamics, Eidos Montreal, and Square Enix Montreal as well. Embracer even somehow secured the rights to the Lord of the Rings franchise for $770 million, which I didn't even know about, to be honest. Yet still, if you add all of that up, it's only but a fraction of what the Saudis paid for Electronic Arts. And yet, despite spending far less than the Saudis, they still pretty much ruined large parts of the games industry through greed and expansion alone. Now, I'm not saying that EA is going to crash and burn, but the repercussions at hand are still very much a tangible reality, given how much money was spent on the acquisitions in the first place. Although, personally, EA is likely going to be in a good enough spot to keep growing and be financially fine, well, hopefully anyways. The last thing I want to see is them finally giving players what they wanted and then ruining their momentum because of greed alone again. It also doesn't help that currently Battlefield is getting blasted by their own community because DICE and EA just can't release fixes quick enough to meet the issues that players have with the game. And beyond this, there's the monetization, which, I'll be upfront, I haven't bought a single cosmetic skin or bundle from Battlefield 6, and I frankly don't see myself ever doing that either. Another issue I've seen online is people complaining that the maps are too small in Battlefield 6. Maybe I'm just getting older, but I still think some of the maps are still too big for me. I almost always prefer smaller to bigger maps myself in multiplayer games, but I'm probably in the minority on that one. But circling back to Black Ops 7, I do think that EA has not only outmaneuvered their competition with Activision, but they've also curb stomped them into the ground this year too. The key, however, here is whether Battlefield can outlive Call of Duty's first major drop of content. Since before this video came out, Black Ops 7's first season still hasn't started. It's days away from this video first coming out, like I said. It will be interesting to see if that Season 1 drop from Black Ops is able to divert players from Battlefield back to Activision's side or not, considering that the Season 1 drop for Black Ops 7 is bringing not 1, but 8 maps to the game over the course of its first season, alongside new zombie maps, new perks, abilities, endgame additions like live events, and modes like One in the Chamber and Prop Hunt, just to name a few. There will also now be Warzone integration from Black Ops 7 and 7 weapons being added to the game, like 2 SMGs, a new assault rifle, an LMG, a melee weapon, a sniper rifle, and a special weapon too. I don't know what that one is honestly, but it's being added apparently. I do think personally Personally, the Season 1's release for Black Ops 7 is pretty much their last chance before players either invest in that game or just give up entirely and go full on Battlefield for the rest of the year. I won't lie, okay, the Season 1 drop is massive, I will check it out, but this being Activision, I'm never really convinced that anything they do or say will be objectively a good thing due to their history in the past. They have a reputation of promising the world and then, well, delivering slop instead, but time will tell. Regardless, what Battlefield has accomplished here despite this is really nothing short of monumental. We are witnessing the rise of a new king in the genre, but EA is hopefully aware that, like anything, they can still lose that crown as fast as they earned it. This does bring me to the final part, which is what happens in the future. As of right now anyways, we're not sure if even like a new Call of Duty will be releasing next year, considering that Grand Theft Auto 6 is on the horizon. But if Activision keeps the same schedule like they always do, that means that the next Call of Duty should be announced in about 2 or 3 months time from now. But what would that even mean in the long run? Can Battlefield have the longevity and power to stave off not one, but 2 full major Call of Duty releases like that? How long until the next Battlefield game even hits? By the time that next game from DICE and EA launches, I mean, how many Call of Duty titles will have been released in the meantime? 2? Maybe 3? 4 even? We could be on like Black Ops 9 or 10 by the time a Battlefield 7 releases, but the ultimate endgame goal here is the battle for you, the player. They obviously want your money, your time, and your eyeballs on them and them alone and not the competition. Sure, Call of Duty lost this year, but the future is still nebulous either way. Surely Battlefield will wane in popularity over the next year, unless DICE somehow manages to turn Battlefield 6 into the next Call of Duty 4 Modern Warfare-like experience they are so clearly chasing right now. But with the major acquisition of Electronic Arts, the owners now looking to line their pockets and EA promising to not be like their older selves, I just have to wonder, where and when will the lines be drawn in the sand going forward? And when they do that, who will they favor? The old ways which ruined them, or the new ways that are now being threatened by groups who also likely want those old ways to return as well? And by old ways, I mean, they're going to want to have yearly releases and content coming out all of the time and multiple battle passes and mini battle passes and all the cosmetics you can believe and the crossovers and God knows what else. You know how it is. These game studios, they just want all the money in the world no matter what, and they will do anything that it takes. And again, Saudi Arabia spent $55 billion, dude. That is the biggest single acquisition of a company, I think anyways, in the entire industry right now. I'm pretty sure that's even bigger than Microsoft buying, not Electronic Arts, my bad, Activision Blizzard, for example. And when they bought Call of Duty, they still haven't been able to recoup the cost, and it's been multiple years since then. So with this Battlefield thing going on, how bad could the monetization really get if the Saudi Arabians are looking at their cash flows and going, hey, we need more money right now and it's not coming in? I mean, think about it. If Call of Duty can have 3 games coming out of all in the 3-year cycle, they have a World War I or II one, they have a future one, and then they have a modern one. How long until Battlefield does the exact same thing and then they ruin the trust, they erode it over time, and it becomes the same thing again where people start walking away because the games that are being made are not having enough time to be, created and tested and actually made as the way Battlefield 6 was at launch. And instead, we're just right back where we were. All lessons weren't learned, and now we're just kind of worse off as we were to begin with because these new owners pretty much just want all the money because they overspended it. I don't know about you guys, but I'm not really convinced currently that the future of Battlefield nor Call of Duty are really going to learn any positive lessons from what's been going on recently. Because if I know anything about these companies, despite them giving you what they want at times, ultimately their morals really are nothing in the end. They will kind of just do whatever they think the players will want at the time, and they will bend any which way to basically just make you, the person, buy their newest game, So I am kind of worried to see where this is all going to go. I have no idea if Battlefield can keep this momentum, especially in a second year, because let's be real, if Call of Duty Modern Warfare 4 is the next one coming out, which it likely is based on the schedules, then that would mean that a Battlefield 6 is going to look a lot older to people when they buy Call of Duty Modern Warfare 4, because that one is actually going to be the actual sequel in theory, since Call of Duty Modern Warfare 3 was technically a DLC that was planned for Call of Duty Modern Warfare 2, but then Activision wanted basically a full-fledged game again, even though they promised they weren't going to do that once Microsoft bought them. And as you can tell right now, I'm completely reading off script. I am just splurting stuff out like loud right now, but I'm just ultimately not really convinced either way, you know? But I guess let me know. But it is an interesting question to ask anyways, so I'm going to ask it before I go, okay? I'm going to ask you to answer this one in the comments. Will Battlefield continue to grow, or is this all just an anomaly? And with Call of Duty, what can they actually do to win you back? Or will Season 1 be really enough for you? I guess let me know as well. But thank you for watching, subscribe, and I'll see you guys next time.